from the third floor of the Rhode Island State House. We call this segment Capitol Spotlight because we take a member of the General Assembly, spend 5 minutes with them, find out some of the things they've been working on and its impact on the Ocean State. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome back a gentleman we've had the good fortune of interviewing many times before, the Honorable State Representative Joe Shekarchi. Representative, it's good to see you.
Always good to see you. Thank you for having me again. It's also a pleasure to be here.
You know, Representative, you're winding down session. First year freshman. What's it been like as you now see the light at the end of the tunnel as things will be wrapping up here, maybe even in the next couple of weeks?
I hope so. I hope that light at the end of the tunnel isn't a train, but I look forward to the end. It's been a very productive session. I've worked very hard. I've passed 9 bills this session, so I'm really excited about to get that many things accomplished. And I have to say, this has been a learning year for me, and it's been wonderful and interacting with my colleagues, but also the staff. Everybody's been friendly. Everybody's been nice. The committee process has been very educational for me. I've met a lot of people, a lot of constituents, and a lot of advocates. A lot of people who feel very passionate about the things they believe in and want to have their voice heard at the State House. So I'm very happy to have that interaction with them. And it's been a great year, and I really look forward to spending a lot of time in the General Assembly going forward.
You know, you mentioned that there was a lot to learn. You must be a pretty good quick study because, as you mentioned, you had 9 bills that passed the first year out of the chute, which is pretty exciting. If you look back at those 9 bills, do you have a favorite? Is there one that you maybe consider your shining moment out of the 9?
Yeah, they're all good, and I can talk about them all, but there's one in particular that I like. I still have some other bills pending, and I'm very hopeful that some of those will move because I have a jobs bill pending, I have a 38 studios bill pending, and I'm waiting to see what happens on the budget on those. We'll know later today. But the biggest piece of legislation I passed so far is a bill that I've worked concurrently on with Attorney General Martin, and it's a bill that prevents, and it's passed the House, it's pending in the Senate, it prevents worker fraud. And what that does is it creates labor inspectors to inspect when there's people who work off the books and people who work for cash and under the table, and it's really a disservice to the state because they're not paying into the system. It's a disservice to other workers, and honestly it's a disservice to themselves because if anything should happen, they're not covered by workers' comp, they're not covered by health insurance, so it's a win-win all the way around. And if the bill gets enacted, it would actually increase revenue to the state dramatically.
Let me tell you somebody else that would be interested in that legislation. Those would be divorced mothers. Now, I know I'm singling out one particular gender here, but there are a lot of women in Rhode Island and the United States who are not receiving the court-ordered child support because the estranged husband or the former husband says, hey, I'm not working, I have no income, there's nothing to pay from, when in fact they're committing that worker fraud that you're now talking about.
So true, so true. It will help children who are waiting for child support. It will help women who are waiting for alimony payments. It will help all of Rhode Islanders because when someone works under the table, they're unaccounted for, they're not paying taxes, they work in sometimes substandard safety situations. So it's a win-win for everybody, not only for the court system and the women, but for the taxpayer, who the average guy, the average Rhode Island who gets up every day, goes to work, pays their fair share of taxes. This bill validates what they're doing.
You know, not to get too far afield here, when you hear talk about illegal immigration or people that are performing jobs that they say citizens of the United States won't perform, a lot of times you have corporations that are exploiting labor with some of these techniques, which is also unfair because it's a human rights issue.
And that's a very good point because this doesn't just target the worker, it targets the company or the employer. It is not an employee-driven penalty. It's an equal penalty for the employer and the employee. So you're right, it takes 2 people to work under the table, the employer and the employee, and this bill addresses both.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. You mentioned 38 studios. What will happen with that? Care to make a prediction?
I don't know. We're getting a budget briefing today. We're having a caucus later in the week. I have to wait and see and listen to everything. I have not made commitments on any bills until I actually hear the testimony and I'll be able to interact and ask questions. I had an issue with the master ballot. I wanted to hear, before I committed my vote, I wanted to hear the testimony in committee and listen to it and research it, and I firmly believe we should eliminate the master ballot. But I didn't make that commitment until I heard all the evidence, and that's just the lawyer in me. I want to hear all the evidence on 38 Studios before I give a commitment.
Representative, thank you so much for talking to us today. My very best to you and your colleagues in the House, again, as we wind down session 2013. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And, of course, we couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for watching for Capitol Television. I'm Dave Barber.